What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got a lot of stuff to go over when it comes to another rumor with the Nintendo Switch 2 big general direct that is coming up from a source that got something correct with the last Nintendo presentation that Nintendo had for Switch 2 and for Switch 1. We've also got some big Nintendo Switch 2 game updates that we have to talk about, and a massive rumor when it comes to a confirmed Nintendo Switch 2 third-party game and what could be coming next from a trusted source. So there is a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the Nintendo Direct rumor that is going down. Shoutouts to Switch Force, Zach over there, or Ghost Robo. He's got a new piece of information when it comes to the next general direct that people are anticipating. Look, the Nintendo Switch 2 has been great so far, but there has been some things that people don't like about some of the presentations that they've done after the system has launched, after that initial incredible April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 kind of reveal and information blowout and all of that. We haven't quite had that big direct afterwards. We've had an indie show, we've had a partner direct show, but this is what's coming next when it comes down to it. So Switch Force said over on Twitter/X that, quote, "Before Jeff takes the stage at Gamescom, the general Nintendo Direct we've all been waiting for is earlier than you'd expect and on a day you wouldn't anticipate." So this is a very interesting comment, and people are going at him on the comment section over on Twitter. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take his word for it because he did get right the indie show that happened after the partner direct that we had, and nobody knew about that show but him. He was the only one to report on that. Even when Nate the Hate was asked, he said, hey, look, I don't know about any indie show or anything. So Switch Force did get that right. He could have the same source that maybe has something in this next show, or another source that has something in this next show, and that's where he got his information from, or that's where maybe he found out about it. So he did get it right last time, so we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But some people are pointing out the obvious with this. Okay, well, Nintendo always has a September Nintendo Direct. Are you claiming like it's going to be August? And he said no, not August. So it's going to be September, but earlier than you'd expect. So is that going to be early September on a day that you don't expect? So will that be a typical day that Nintendo doesn't do it? A Monday, a Friday? Usually it's sometime during the week. So they'll announce it like on a Monday, and then it'll be on Tuesday, or announce it on Tuesday, be on Wednesday, or Wednesday on a Thursday. But they usually don't do weekends, Saturday or Sunday, or Mondays either. Now, have they done it before in the past? I think with the Monday, yes, they've done that, but it's very rare. It's always on a weekday, announced beforehand, usually one day before, and then it comes out the next day. They usually don't announce it more than one day in advance, but they've done that once again at times before, sparingly. So I'm looking at the calendar overall for a potential Nintendo Direct. He says sooner than you'd expect, and I'm looking at this and I'm guessing that it would probably be either the first or second week of September, and I'm guessing since he says earlier than expected, that would be the first week of September, because usually if they're doing a direct, it's going to be mid or late in the month. Usually they don't do it early in the month, but sometimes, once again, they have done it early in the month, but usually it's mid or later in the month. So it could be the first 2 weeks. Maybe it's the same day that Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion comes out, a Friday, which is not typical on a day that you wouldn't expect. So we'll see about that. And listen, will Nintendo try something crazy like a Saturday or Sunday direct? I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if that's going to be the case here. So I don't think they're going to do anything on the weekends, too much stuff where people aren't in the office to kind of manage and what's going on and all that. So I don't see it happening on that. But once again, you never know. Nintendo can kind of bust out anything in this Switch 2 generation. They've already done a number of things that they normally don't do. But Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion, which we're going to talk about in just a bit, that game comes out on the 5th, so maybe they drop it on that day. Also have that nice game to go alongside of it and everything. But once again, we're going to have to wait and see. But nobody would probably be expecting a Nintendo Direct, the September Nintendo Direct, that early when it comes to the first week of September, because that would be in essentially 2 weeks, and the Nintendo Direct would be here. So most people probably aren't expecting that. We do have a new drop with Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Starcross World on the 28th, so next week. So maybe 1 week after that, Nintendo already primes and gets ready for the next thing. Now, we just recently had the Kirby Air Riders Direct, and that has got a date for November 20th. So we're going to talk about that in just a bit as well, and how all of this ties into what Nintendo's going to be doing for the rest of the year. But before we get into that, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the next thing here, and we're going to talk about Kirby Air Riders, because this was a very interesting thing and kind of a narrative that I'm being seen said online when it comes to the release date and in relation to Metroid Prime 4. For some reason, people think that because Kirby was announced for November 20th, that means that Metroid Prime 4 is somehow delayed out of the year because Nintendo wouldn't drop more than one game in a month, or there's not enough months left in the year to have multiple games. And I think it's funny how fast people forget about what Nintendo has done in the past, and even what they've done in the past multiple times, even going back to the first calendar year of the Nintendo Switch 1 and what they did in that generation when it comes to the end of the year, and multiple other years as well. So we're going to get into that because this is very interesting in my opinion. But Kirby Air Riders, a direct solely focused on that game. Sakurai spent 45 minutes plus yapping very hilariously at times.
いやー、ゲーム作りってなんでこんなに大変なんでしょうね。今回は残念ながらボタンを一つ追加してしまいました。
About various aspects with this game, and it was so funny because he made it sound like it was just going to be so simple and so easy and so nothing, and that's all there is to it. And then he continuously layered on mechanic after mechanic, new rider after new rider, new machine after new machine, new difficulty or new different technique or skill after new skill, new different things over and over, to the point to where I actually got confused and forgot what he was even talking about around the city trial stadium type of thing. There's just so much stuff that he's put into this game. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a mix-up from Mario Kart. Some people are saying that, oh, well, there's already Mario Kart, so why about this game? But this game is different. There's only 6 people riding in the race. You're defeating enemies on the screen. You're getting copy abilities. It's a very different style and a faster paced game than Mario Kart is. So this game might have a bunch of people that like this more than Mario Kart. But once again, I get it. You are riding and racing in some type of way, but the city trial mode and what they showed off there, and all the details are in that direct. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff overall. You gather all these weapons and power-ups and different things, and there's events that happen, and all sorts of crazy stuff kind of goes on. And then you go into like a stadium event, and then you go from there. There's 16 players online. You can do all sorts of stuff in this game, and it seems very in-depth and very different, I would say, even from the original Kirby Air Riders. Obviously, it's a sequel to that. You can tell there's so many other things, but they added so many different things to the mix here. Like I said, with everybody having copy abilities, with having multiple riders overall, with having so many different stats and abilities with each of the machines. Like, it is a in-depth, full-on sequel to Kirby Air Rider, and it's much better in pretty much every single way from what they've shown. So they've already detailed it. It's going to be $70. It's dropping on November 20th, and Sakurai is the king of presentations overall, man. He really just knows how to lay things out. But it was 45 minutes because, once again, he was yapping about so many things, and this game has not been around for 20 years. Most people have never even played Kirby Air Riders, and Nintendo has only released one game in the history of it. Now, I don't think this game is the big super, oh my gosh, the reason why Nintendo is going to be selling the Nintendo Switch 2 for the holiday, as some people are trying to make it out to be, because it's a November release. But we're going to talk about that in just a bit too. But I want to discuss what's happening with Metroid Prime 4, because I did see multiple of my mutuals and other people that now, since Kirby Air Riders is coming out on November 20th, that means Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is delayed, or it's not going to come out this year. And I don't think so. Nintendo has the game that's playable at Gamescom. Now, once again, I could be completely wrong about the release date for this year, and I understand if I'm wrong. I'll definitely take an L on that. But we're at this point, Nintendo could have easily announced a delay if there was going to be a delay for this game. It's playable at Gamescom. It's already been playable before. Nintendo had a playable treehouse demo thing that they did. They've shown the game off multiple times at this point. They've reconfirmed it for 2025 last year and again this year at the investors meeting. Yes, there's still time if they wanted to delay it that they could, but I just don't think it's actually going to be delayed based off of the number of things that I just said. And also, if you go back and you look in the first calendar year of the Nintendo Switch 1's launch, they actually loaded up a month beforehand at the end of the year. Back in October of 2017, we had Fire Emblem Warriors in addition to Super Mario Odyssey released pretty close to each other. So they've done that before. And if you go back to 2021 as well, they also released games like Mario Party Superstars and Metroid Dread very close to each other too. So they've done that before in the past, and I think that there's even other years as well where they've released games at the end of the year in the same month overall or incredibly close to each other. That's just sometimes they have so many games that are coming out, they do sometimes pack it towards the end of the year. So it's not necessarily unheard of that Nintendo wouldn't have more than one game packed into a month at the end of the year, whether it's October or November. They've done it before or have had exclusives that have been packed into the same month. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond could easily be an October or November release. I could see Nintendo doing a December release for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. They've done December before. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in the first year of the Nintendo Switch 1 was a December game. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was also a December game in 2018. So Nintendo has done December games as well, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond could be that. Now, also, we've got Splatoon Raiders. We don't know where that's going to be. We've got Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. We don't know where that's going to be, but that is winter of this year. That could also slip to early next year because this winter actually goes to next year early as well. But to me, there's still plenty of time and there's still plenty of ways for Nintendo to put this in here. If you pair this up with what Switchforce is saying when it comes to the Nintendo Direct and it's earlier than expected, I fully expect them to drop Metroid Prime 2 and 3 in September as a shadow drop, and then also announce the release date for Metroid Prime 4 to be either October, November, or December. It's obviously going to be one of those months if it does drop in 2025. Now, once again, it still could be 2026, but there's still plenty of months left. You don't need some type of massive rollout and hype before it. They've already shown the game multiple times. There's already been multiple demos that people have been able to play. It's also going to be at PAX West. So it's one of those things to where they've already got it in the hands of certain public and press and media members. They've already been teasing it and talking about it now for the whole generation of the Nintendo Switch 1, or more like it's obviously been in development originally and then scrapped and started back up with Retro Studios. So you don't necessarily need some type of big multiple month press release before the game comes out. People know about it, the reviews are going to come, it's going to get good reviews, and it's probably going to do really well considering it's on Nintendo Switch 1 and it's on Nintendo Switch 2. So there's plenty of people that will be available to buy the game if they want to buy the game with hands-on time, in addition to multiple times that they've talked about the game before. So I'm not worried when it comes to that at all. I don't think Kirby Air Riders, which is not necessarily the biggest AAA type of huge release that's going to sell crazy amounts, that's not anything that's going to interfere with Metroid Prime 4 selling as well. They're pretty different audiences, I think, for that type of game, or people can buy both, or people will pick one when it comes down to it, and both of these games will sell for a long amount of time throughout the life of the Nintendo Switch 2, just like a lot of the early Nintendo Switch 1 games sold for a good amount of time after they released, as the install base continues to go up. So I'm not on board yet when it comes to Metroid Prime 4 delay or anything based off of Kirby Air Riders, and that's simply based off of the history that Nintendo's had of having multiple different big exclusives or even big first-party published games in the same month or very close to each other when it comes down to the end of the year. So those are my thoughts on Kirby Air Riders when it comes to the game, in addition to its relation that people are trying to put together with Metroid Prime 4. So what do you guys think about that? You can let me know in the comment section below. But we also have to talk about another major piece of news with a AAA third-party game that's also kind of like a first-party game from a company that's also kind of going third-party, but still going to have a console produced, and that is Microsoft. Because the first ever Xbox Nintendo Switch 2 published game is confirmed. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is confirmed and coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026. There was also a trailer for the DLC, The Order of Giants, as well, and the downloadable content will be out on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC on September 4th. And once again, Nintendo Switch 2 version, that is coming in 2026, which caught me completely by surprise because I didn't think that it was going to be announced at this event. One thing, yes, we knew that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was going to come at some point. We knew that Microsoft games were going to come at some point. I just didn't know that it was going to be at the opening night live and they're going to dedicate some time for the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game. So that's what caught me off guard because Nate the Hate already stated that Indiana Jones was coming and a lot more Microsoft games were coming. Now, one of the things that people were kind of upset about with the Nintendo Switch 2 when Microsoft had their big E3 event was, where's the Xbox ports at? Where's all that stuff? Well, it's going to take some more time to get those ports over because the Nintendo Switch 2 is not an x86 system. It's not the exact same thing as Xbox Series S and X and PlayStation 5 and PC. You do have to actually take time to develop to make a good port, and you don't want rushed ports overall. And once again, it's not their main priority when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. So that's the reason why you're going to see more ports and more stuff over time. Very similar to Nintendo Switch 1, but obviously with Nintendo Switch 2, you have way more announcements of major third-party games way faster and way better support. Heck, the Nintendo Switch 1 didn't get a major third-party game until I think November of 2017, and it was older games. It wasn't really stuff that was in line with what's coming out. Like, for example, 007 First Light already announced for the Nintendo Switch 2, and Borderlands 4 coming out very close to the Xbox and PlayStation release. We didn't have stuff like that. So it's a very different atmosphere when it comes to third party, and the increased hardware is getting that type of support. But obviously it could get better, and it will get better. And this is the first indication of that because Nate the Hate has also stated this when it comes to Microsoft and Bethesda and what's coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. Nate the Hate is also stating that Starfield will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 as well in 2026, and that is also very interesting to see. Now, once again, Nate already stated this on his podcast. He stated that Starfield will be coming over, and it was already rumored that Starfield could be coming over, but here is what he had to say on Twitter about it. Quote, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle won't be the only Bethesda game coming to Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026. You see that planet? You can go there. Aside from landing on PS5, Starfield is planned for release on Nintendo Switch 2 in 2026. So very interesting as well with that. These are big games that came out on Xbox. Obviously, they're coming to PlayStation 5. Indiana Jones already came to PlayStation 5, did great on there. Now we also have a rumor, pretty much confirmation that Starfield's going to be there as well. And there's going to be more Microsoft games, more big third-party games as people get antiquated with the hardware and as the install base continues to go up. So that's something that I was never worried about, but you have people on Twitter that overreact and panic after 2 months on the market or something like that. If every single game in the world's not announced for the Nintendo Switch 2, but more games are coming. It's a very different platform. It's a very interesting platform, but obviously it's a platform that the industry needs to do well. We need some competition. We need another console that's going to get some sales and going to do well. So I think that it's in a lot of these third-party developers' best interest to also put out games on the Switch 2 as they actually get their dev kits and as they get familiar with the hardware, which I do think is going to happen gradually as we go along, and probably by 2027 or so, you'll start seeing a lot more ports coming day and date with the Nintendo Switch 2, as it's got a couple years on its belt compared to just launching and people really just getting the dev kits and all of that. So what do you guys think when it comes to all of this information? Obviously a lot of different stuff. You can let me know in the comment section. Although we do have one more title that I want to talk about, and that is Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. There is a brand new demo that is available. I've been playing the demo myself. The save data from the demo can be carried over to the full game. I've been playing it on the Nintendo Switch 2, but it's also available on other platforms as well, so you can check it out. So the portable play looks a little bit blurry at times when I'm playing portable. The resolution probably isn't the best, but the dock play seems decent or good enough. But clearly you're going to get better resolution, better frame rates, and better all of that on PC, Xbox Series, or PlayStation 5. But that portable play for this type of game with the amount of content that's in here, side quests, and different stuff that you can do, obviously a Switch 2 version is much appreciated from people that like portable play. I'd also add here too that there's no cross save between the platforms, which is very unfortunate because I personally would buy a PlayStation 5 version and a Nintendo Switch 2 version if I could, so I can play the PS5 version on the big screen TV and then take the portable version on the go with my Switch 2. I don't like portable PCs and I don't want to do file transfers and cloud saves from Steam, so I'm not going to do that when it comes to PC. Tried it, didn't like it with Persona 3 Reload, but hey, it is what it is. I'll just play the Nintendo Switch 2 version. Maybe I'll pick up the PS5 version at some point and play it in a different type of way. But I'd also add that this game's really important when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 because it's a full 64 gigabyte cartridge for a bigger type of title. So if you want to see those full releases on the Nintendo Switch 2 on cartridge right then and there, this is the type of game to support. It's not a game key card here in the West. In Japan, it is, so they can import, like we have to import stuff like Fantasy Life. I don't feel sorry for people that have to import in Japan, considering how much money I've spent on importing throughout my life. So if it's a problem for them over there, import it just like we have to import stuff. But here in the West, it's going to be 64 gigabytes on the cartridge overall, fully playable. So pick that up if you're looking to support the full on cartridge games here in the West. And overall, I've been having fun with the demo. I think it's going to be a really good game. It feels better to play than Daemon X Machina on the Nintendo Switch 1. It runs and looks better for the most part when it comes down to all of it. So I'm looking forward to the full release of the game and transferring over the saved data. So what do you guys think about everything that I've talked about here when it comes to all the different Nintendo Switch 2 topics? Let me know in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.